things. What is that?
Ancient Chinese secret. Kidding, it's just aloe. The bullet left a nasty burn, but that's just a grace. This'll heal it right up.
Hello and welcome to the Quantum Leap podcast. I'm Albie. I'm here with Matt Dale. And our special guest today is from the episode of Quantum Leap, Salvation or Bust. He played Ming, the town's doctor. This is Eddie Park. Hi, Eddie. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing awesome. Great to be here. Big fan of the show.
Thank you so much for being on Quantum Leap podcast. I'm excited to talk to you because Salvation or Bust, I really enjoyed the leap part of that, the Western part of that. And I want to talk about Quantum Leap, of course, and get to your experience on there. But I want to find out a little bit more about you first. Like, how did you get into acting? How did you get the bug? What were some of your first jobs? Can you walk us through that?
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you. And also I want to be on the show. I've been catching up and just having a great time reliving memories.
Awesome.
So I first got into acting. I used to be this extremely shy kid with like a little stutter, and I think elementary school, my dad and my parents were just kind of like forcing me into stuff. You know, they're like, "Oh, try t-ball, try this, try soccer, try piano." And then, as a shy kid, I'm like, "Oh, this sucks." And then finally, my dad was like, "Hey, you should try for the school play." And out of all things, I was like, "What?" And I tried out, wasn't expecting much, and it was a fourth grade play, so it wasn't a huge deal. And then I got Danny Zuko because the musical was Grease.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, whoa, as like a little fourth grader, I'm like, well, that's crazy. And then I did the performance, and I remember that from that moment on, when I was singing my song, and I'm like, my legs are shaking, out in the audience, that's how I basically became the person I am today. Sounds cliche, but yeah. And then when I act, my stutter kind of went away, and as I became more open, yeah. And I didn't get into acting, so maybe about middle school, and then I was taking classes. Didn't get too many jobs, but from late middle school to mid high school, I would get small things. One of my first jobs was with Ken Jeong for his show on ABC. And then one of my later ones was Criminal Minds, the last season. So that was a big one for me. Got to play a traumatized teenager whose dad gets murdered. And a few other ones. And this one is the biggest deal for me. I had the most fun with Quantum Leap, yeah.
Have you done much else in terms of musical theatre? You said you started off with Grease. Was there anything else, even on an amateur level, that you were doing on that kind of side?
I got more into musical theater in high school, and then I would do, some plays like old-fashioned plays, Our Town, Dining Room, and the musicals were more like Music Man. What else did we do? We did Beauty and the Beast, Mamma Mia, and that was the most fun. And then we were gonna do Chicago. I was playing Billy from the lead, and then COVID happened, so that's when all theaters went, shut down. But on a TV, bigger and better things, so.
Yeah, Billy Flynn, that's a great part. Were you able to hit that high note in Grease? What was it, Summer Nights? Is that the song?
Oh, yeah, that was like pre-puberty Eddie, so, I was hitting all those notes for sure. So.
Cool.
It was like butter.
What's it like for a young actor to go from like school plays to being on Criminal Minds? I mean, that's a huge step. Was it like a lot of nerves and big responsibility to take on?
I've been performing so much throughout my childhood that it kind of like numbed me to being nervous, I guess. And especially with this kind of fun role, it's like a ragtag group of, cowboys from the Old West, saving the town. It was just like playing every day. So, I don't think it was too much of a leap. Sorry, no pun intended. I don't know why I made that joke, but it wasn't that big of a leap. But yeah, doing small projects, and then finally something this fun, filming in the Universal backlot. Wow, seeing the Universal tram that I used to ride when I was a kid, people waving, and I'm just like, yeah.
You're on the other side now. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. How did you get involved with Quantum Leap? What was the process of going from hearing about the part to being on set?
So my manager, Miss Mara, she emailed me, as all managers do, and then I was like, oh, Quantum Leap, okay, Ming. And my dad, he saw the email. He was like, do you know how big of a deal this is? Like, they're bringing back Quantum Leap in episode 5. And I'm like, yeah, because, I was before my time, and then I did my research. I'm like, whoa, this is a huge deal. And just reading the script and seeing, Chinese Americans being represented in this time, I was like, wow. So I auditioned, and I had about 4 auditions that day because I was actually in Korea on vacation, taking care of family. So I just had to get these auditions out, and then this one felt good. Like, it felt, it was a very homey scene. It was the one where I'm in the apothecary taking care of Mr. Raymond. And I think like 2 weeks later, I only sent one self-tape and I got booked to the role, and I was extremely blessed. And when I got to the U.S. again, 1 week after I arrived, back to work. Awesome.
Is that normal for you at the moment? You mentioned you're doing kind of 4, I guess they were all self-tapes, 4 auditions back to back. That must be quite challenging, just getting yourself from one character to the next. Is that a normal day for you now, or was it just everything happened to come at once? You were just waiting for months, and all the auditions hit at the same time.
I know, because I was in Korea, so I was like, okay, I have to find an English speaker that could, read with me. And luckily, my cousin was there.
Right.
Really close. And one was I was a Korean American kid in the '90s. I had to cry a lot. One was, this other one, just, I was just like a teen, and then a cowboy. Yeah, it was just. The common ground was Asian teen, so that helped.
One thing I noticed while watching Salvation or Bust, and your part in particular, talking about in the apothecary and putting aloe on Raymond Lee, was like, you look young, but I assumed you were like a much older actor because you just had this confidence about you in that scene. Your character did anyway. How does someone as young as yourself carry yourself that, let's say, mature?
Number one is the rest of the cast and crew. Honestly, it's just how do they make you feel welcome, and how how are they collaborating with you? Because I was the youngest person on set, I believe, and Miss Natalia, who plays Valentina, she is playing someone younger than me, but she is a few years older than me, and everyone looks so young. I was so surprised. Everyone, the guest stars, they look so young, but they're saying that they have like children and that they're married. I'm like, what? I was like, wow, but they were talking to me as if I was, I was their age.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of burden. I just, we're just all joking around a lot. So I like to think of myself as mature, but definitely. And I guess in terms of character, Ming, he's, I think he's 16 or 17. He's carrying on the burden of, taking care of this town. And McDonough and his gang, they may have been popping in or out and other outlaws. So I guess that Ming's, the weight that he carries on his shoulders must be huge. Medicine wasn't huge back then, of course. And I just feel like he has, a teenage boy must have matured. So I was like, okay, I have to take on that responsibility. I have to, and his relationship with his father. He has to take care of his father.
Speaking of your father on the show, we got the pleasure, Matt and I, to speak to Harry Yee, and he spoke very highly of you, even when we weren't recording. And he explained to us a little bit about preparing for that scene. Can you tell us your memories of preparing for that scene and filming that scene?
Yeah, I first met Harry. I was getting my makeup done in the trailer, and I was walking in. I see Harry in the back. He's on the very opposite end. He's like, my son! And I'm like, oh, what's up? And because we're both Korean, and he's partially Korean, and then we kind of like bonded over that. And so, and I just got a very first strong impression when I first met him. I was like, this is going to be awesome. And when I got back to my trailer, he mentioned how he knocked on my door, right? And he's like, you know what, let's bond. Let's go to crafting. I'm like, hell yeah. And so we get on set. We're not even called yet, but we just wanted to sink in the Western, town. This is our first time on set. And we're just, we're eating our yo plays at crafting and eating our Doritos. And we're just chilling. And he just tells the most awesome stories, from being like a Broadway star to being like in like the early hip hop dance scene in New York, and his time all over the world and all these projects. Yeah, awesome dude, awesome, very talented dude, for sure.
Harry had mentioned how important it was to have three different generations of Asian Americans represented on network television, and I think it's great when something like that happens. And it's not even part of the story; that just the characters happen to be Asian American. Can you tell me a little bit about your feelings on representation on television and the opportunities that you're getting now?
Oh yeah. So first off, as you mentioned, the three generations that also Mr. Harry mentioned, it was crazy because it was like the teen and then like the adult and then like the older adult. Um, the funny thing was that we were all theater kids. I did theater in high school and I'm still studying theater right now. Mr. Raymond Lee, he did theater in college and he made his own little touring group actually with his friends. He was telling me about that. And Harry, he was touring on Broadway, as you guys know. And there would just be like these times where like the three of us were just dancing off stage and like we're like joking around, making like musical, kind of moves, and we're singing. I remember one time when we were off in like the waiting room, we were just singing like Africa by Toto, just doing the harmonies. It was a great time. So it was just three theater kids, basically, essentially, just each with their own experiences, just having a blast. In terms of representation, wow. As I mentioned earlier, Harry and I were chilling out on set, and one of the writers, Derek A. Hughes, he comes up to us and he introduces himself to us. We're like, oh yeah, 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 and we're just mentioning how much we love the script, and thank you for putting representation in for us. And Mr. Hughes, who is also Asian American, he just kind of explained to us that you know it's not that Hollywood nowadays, they're becoming more inclusive, right? But he explained to us that this was what it really was in the West. There were people, it was a diverse population. There were Chinese Americans, there were, Hispanic people, there were, of course, African Americans. And, back then, when Westerns were made in like the 60s and so on, it would just be purely Caucasian, and maybe, they would introduce like a Native American character, like a classic Native American character. But yeah, it was just awesome to finally see a true diverse cast that kind of represents the true Wild West of like what it would have been now. Yeah.
So what was Raymond Lee like?
Wow. There's a reason why he is the leading man. Let me tell you, because on screen he has like this charisma, right? But when you see him in person, because like he is pretty much taller than me, so like I see him, he's like these wide shoulders, he has like these warm eyes, he has like these pearly white teeth, and he's like in like his cowboy, like he looked awesome in that cowboy outfit, by the way, with like the blue and like the corduroy kind of vest. And when I saw him, he just projects this aura that like models have, like it's like, man, that's Raymond Lee. And I would catch him certain times, just like walking around hitting like these high notes and riffs. And I'm like, did anyone else hear that? Because he'd be like, no, 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 like that was nothing. And he has this secret talent where he he humbles he humbles himself by saying, "Oh, no, like I'm not that great of a singer, but I can find a harmony to anything." So I was like, "Wow!" So there's a fun fact for you: Mr. Raymond Lee can harmonize to everything, and yeah, he's just an amazing, fun, warm guy. Just hopefully get to work with him again. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier this was filmed on the Universal backlot, and what was it like being part of a production like that? How was like the director, producers, the rest of the crew, just that whole 8-day shoot I think you had? What was that whole experience like for you?
So the two, I mean, everyone was amazing, but the two biggest figures to me were the director, Mr. Silas Howard, and the executive producer, Mrs. Deborah Pratt. Wow, they know how to like command everything. Mr. Silas Howard, he's from the very first day. I wasn't too much involved. The first day was the bucket, the fire, and we were probably running, just getting just wet, everywhere, and people just lugging just 25 pounds of water over. And let me tell you, man, Mr. Howard, such he's just someone that you just want to like hang out with, because a lot of directors, they're at times they can seem kind of untouchable. You know what I mean? They can seem kind of intimidating, and you just want to like please the director. Maybe have like a fun chat with them. But no, Mr. Howard, he was such a joy to work with. So nice, and everyone's just a goofball, and the fact that he was able to kind of create that environment, especially on like a cowboy set, if everyone's a goofball and you're on a cowboy set, like wow, that's room for a ton of jokes, a bunch of memories. And Miss Deborah Pratt, there was this one memory. We're all getting dinner, and there was a night shoot, and she's awesome. She wanted to have dinner with the guest cast. I was like, wow, like people are really putting time to meet, voice crack, meet, and just get to know and just spend time with the 99% of the cast that is there and that goes. So I really appreciated that. And she was telling me the story because she's been with Quantum Leap since the very first series, right? And as the first show was kind of wrapping, she was telling me how she actually tried to expand Quantum Leap, get a cartoon, get more merchandising, and have like a convention, just make everything huge, just expand Quantum Leap. And I guess the producers and the people back then were like, that's okay, yeah, like you can figure that out, just you that yourself and you'll pitch it to us. And she tried to get this meeting, and everyone, like the head could go, I don't remember too much about the details. But basically, like everyone was like, okay, like we'll get working. And then when the big boss heard about, what she wanted to do, he was like, guys, why aren't we getting on this? And they were starting to, like they were getting the cartoon developed. And then that's when the show got discontinued. But yeah, which is a bummer. But no, yeah, you can tell that she loves the show and she loves every second of it. And there's a reason why she's back. And just filming on the backlot with these people that want to spend time with you in a cowboy land, like what can get better than that? This isn't just a normal set crew and cast. This is, man, if I could like relive that, like I was so blessed and grateful. Like this whole environment that they created was like one in a million. Definitely. I'm not just saying that, like it was awesome. It was so cool.
I guess as far as guest starring roles go, usually you'd just be the one person showing up amongst a lot of people that are used to being there and used to working together. But in a show like Quantum Leap, you're surrounded by people that are all new. And you've talked a bit about how you bonded with Harry. Is there anything else you can share about how the guest cast, who were effectively all new for that 8 days and then all scattered afterwards, how you all came together and how you worked together?
Yeah, so I guess it kind of contrasts with the previous episodes because, there was the astronaut one and like the robbery one and the boxing one, and they would have like their own, little groups and stuff like that, right? But this one was different because it was like a team, it was people with different skill sets coming together, and that was kind of reflected in the cast because even though we didn't have too much time together, we definitely had scenes, like the town meeting, we're trying to figure out a plan, and Miss Caitlin Bassett's walking around saying, Ming's a chemist and he does explosives, and old Joe, he's he used to be a hunter. But yeah, we got really attached to each other. There would just be times where, as I said before, they made me feel like I was, their age. We'd just be talking about like having kids, and we just got so close, just talking about like motorcycles and what else? Just so many crazy things. Shout out to Mr. Demetrius Butler. What a man. Like he's awesome just to talk with. And at the end of the shoot, they announce our wrap. All right, like these people, you're wrapped for the night. Everyone's cheering. And when we drive a van back to our dressing rooms to get undressed and go back home, there's this video clip that I have, and I'll let you know if you guys want to see it. But it's just us singing like a song, this black hole, and everyone's just singing along, and everyone's like happy, and then Demetrius goes, "I love y'all," and everyone's like, "Oh, I love you too," and it was just kind of like a bittersweet moment. Yeah, everyone just got really close.
I'm really enjoying Quantum Leap, but I'm also, I think, almost more enjoying the behind the scenes stories of all the just the kindness and love and fun that everyone seems to be having on the set. It just makes the show that much better to hear that, because you don't always have that. Another thing I wanted to know about, there's this exciting scene at the end where the townspeople group together and fight off the big bad guy and stuff. What was it like filming that action sequence? I know you're up on the balcony, right, with Harry and stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about that day?
Yeah, so that day was dedicated to that whole montage, right? And we were joking around, instead of just putting like a theme, we should put like the A-Team theme, like dun 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 dun, and like we were joking around about that. Uh, so yeah, like everyone looked so badass during that part with Miss Yanni King like flicking the match. But I think Harry and I were the last part of that big sequence to get filmed, and we're running out of sunlight. And we hadn't practiced throwing like the bombs, because like they were like weighted, and Harry was talking about how he almost hit someone in the camera with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just one take. It was just a minute of us chucking these bombs down, not trying not to hit people, and I was like dodging shots. It was fun. And then we were expecting to throw probably like 5 times more, but they're like, "We're good. I love that." So we're like, "Oh, nice."
Oh, awesome.
And as you mentioned, the last hurrah scene, they actually cut a few lines out. And I understand, because it kind of like, I guess, got in the way of like the pace, just kind of like the heroic hurrah. And Henry, played by Marquise Bolson, the character is eating, because I don't know if they showed the buffet, but there was a buffet at the bar, but they have more close-ups of that. And we're all fake eating, and Henry goes, he goes, man, like, Wei, who's my father, who's the chef, like, have you ever thought about opening your own place? And then, he can't talk, so I speak on his behalf. So I'm like, like, my dad's been looking for a business partner, so I don't know, like, we'll see. And what's her name? Frankie. It's like, you know what? I mean, I'm your gal, and it's just like the sweet moment where it's like the first Chinese restaurant being established. And I thought that was a sweet moment, and unfortunately, it didn't get to on screen. But
it's a shame.
That's awesome to hear about that. We had no idea. I love that you mentioned that you guys were talking about A-Team while filming, because that was one thing that came across my mind while I was watching it, especially when Raymond as Ben says, "I love it when a plan comes together," because that's what they say at the end of every A-Team after all the townspeople group together to win the day or whatever. So that was awesome. Eddie, are there any other memories you can share with us about the time you had on Quantum Leap?
Yeah, for sure. There's Mr. Raymond. He made me break character probably a dozen times. One being, I mean, obviously, there was a little more leeway because the camera was behind me, so I could kind of like hide my laughter. But you might see, like, the audio might catch my breath going like, doing those little sniffles, as well as like my body going up and down. But the part where he eats the wonton soup, he's like, "Oh yeah," like, as like the later takes were like, Ben's starving at this point. He hasn't eaten since he first left, so he's really starving. So the next take, he's like slurping on the soup, just like it's like that, and like I'm just like trying not to break character, and he has like spinach going up and like wontons coming out of his mouth, and he's just going at it, and I'm just like, there's this one take where you couldn't even hear me talk because it was just all. But secondly, yeah, that was awesome. The second scene was at town meeting, and I have this one line where Ben's talking about his plan, and I go, "What are you thinking?" And Ben does like this look. He's like, like, I got a plan. And before they say cut, or right when they say cut, he's like, and I say, "What are you thinking?" And he goes, "We're gonna poop on them." And just like It was like a stupid remark, and then everyone just like laughed. And he would say every single take, he's a goofball. I love him.
Oh
and
my goodness.
The close-ups on me, I would just think about him saying we're gonna poop on him. And everyone's just looking at me on that last scene where I'm like, what are you thinking? And I'm biting my tongue as hard as I can, trying to get the shot in. And it just got too bullying at some point. And Raymond just like looking at me, because it's just like the look that he does. He's like, he does that.
Yeah.
And as it was getting to his close-ups and my back of my head, I had more time. So I couldn't even look at him. Like, I was just laughing so hard at a certain point that I had to actually look at the floor. I had to face my head towards him. I'd say, what are you thinking? And Miss Kaylin Bassett, he was like, Raven, you're just so with me. And she grabs me like the back. He's like, oh, no, you're doing such a good job. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But no, yeah, everyone's a goofball. Everyone's just having fun.
That is so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eddie, for being part of the Quantum Leap podcast. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing those stories with us. It makes our understanding of the episode so much better. And I think I'm going to actually go and watch the episode again now that I know these other things and see if I can tell where they happen. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Eddie.
No, thank you, guys. It was a blast just to relive these memories and talk about it again. Yeah, I'm smiling, and I'll continue smiling throughout the whole entire day, probably. What are you thinking?